Question, do you ever trim your balls and it ends up as bloody as a Nate Diaz fight? Or is it worse than that? Is your sack so scarred from dodgy razors and bad clippers that it now resembles Wanderlei Silva's face post-retirement? He was the only fighter with cauliflower face. What a fighter though. Well, you're in luck because this fight prediction is brought to you by the official trimmer of the UFC, Manscaped. And they just released their 4th generation performance package, the Lawnmower 4.0. You've heard of the 3.0, some of you might even got it. I'm afraid you're last generation now. This is the new shit right here. This is the one we all want. This 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. That's not all they've sent us, the boxer shorts, and of course, the anti-chafing ball deodorant. Lord knows some of you out there really need this because, damn, you stinky bastards. Feel great in your own skin and fuel your own expression of masculinity. Oh, that'll trigger some of you out there. Well, men need to feel good too sometimes, and that's what Manscaped is all about. Get 20% off when you go to manscaped.com/true. The link is in the description below. Back again. Welcome back to the True Geordie Extra channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. And today, it's the prediction for Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. A fight I never thought I would fucking see happen. Bloody hell. What the fuck? The shit that really fucks my head up about this fight is that when I first interviewed Jake Paul, he was preparing for a fight with Deji 3 years ago. At that time, that very moment, Tyron Woodley was the welterweight champion of the world. This kid barely knew how to throw hands, barely had a clue. And Tyron Woodley was the champion of the world. Is it time to give a little credit? Like, all of this, he's fighting nobody, he's fighting easy. When Jake Paul fought Deji, about 2 or 3 months later, Tyron Woodley went out and finished Darren Till. Now that Jake Paul's fighting, Tyron Woodley, all of a sudden he's finished. Whether that may be the case at the top level in the UFC is a debate for itself. But this is a YouTuber still who had picked the game of boxing up 3 years ago. Tyron Woodley, world champion. If there's anyone out there just not going to give any credit for even stepping in the ring with him, all right, I mean, I can see the twisted logic. You may want to just do anything you can to sort of belittle Jake Paul's achievements, the Ben Askren win. I see how you could poke holes in it. But if Jake Paul beats Tyron Woodley, is that nothing now? He's finished. Is that what we're going to do? Is that really what's going to happen? Because that's a monumental achievement. Just to put this in perspective, for any of you out there who have never laced gloves up in your life, or even have laced gloves up but don't really take it that seriously, you're not a professional fighter. Most of you aren't professional fighters. Despite what the comments say, most of you fucking aren't, right? Imagine you just take up boxing now, and then in 3 years, you're fighting Kamaru Usman in a boxing match. It's fucking mad, that. So I'm going to get to the fucking point pretty quickly here, but I do want to let you know before I break this down, I've got a new podcast starting on the main channel, and I am so hyped for this. It's a real passion project. I love fighting, and now I've got a fighting podcast starting on the main channel. We'll put some of the clips on this channel as well, and it's called The Pain Game Podcast. I got the name from my old boxing coach, Derek, who, when I was first learning boxing, he said, this is the pain game. You got to go through pain to learn anything. So tip of the cap to Derek. Shout out Vidal Riley's dad. He sort of inspired the name, and I'm so passionate about this. I'm so excited because, the True Geordie podcast, obviously we do a whole life stories, whereas this is going to be, half an hour, an hour, just chats with fighters before they have a fight, after they have a fight, some popular fight fans that can get on there and debate them about stuff. And I really can't wait for you lot to get involved. Let us know who you want us to have on there. And episode 1 is with a guest, the heavyweight Disney Channel star of the world. Me and Jake are going to talk a lot about the fight, about Conor McGregor, the UFC, fight I paid, Dana White, all of that shit. Where he says this going next. So it's all in there. But I'm going to give my honest prediction now about how I say this fight going. We are going to find out a great deal about Jake Paul in this fight. I think this is a hard fight to call for a lot of people. Really, we don't know how Tyron Woodley is going to be as a boxer. Could this be a renaissance of his career? We've never really seen Jake Paul take punishment or fight anyone with the striking experience of a Tyron Woodley. He's literally gone from Ben Askren, who couldn't fucking break his nana's china, to a guy who flatlined Robbie Lawler, a guy who dropped Darren Till. Serious speed and power Tyron Woodley has. It's a huge jump. He probably could have done a little incremental and then Tyron Woodley. And for that reason, this could be a huge mistake. Tyron Woodley can really crack. But that doesn't mean he's a good boxer. We're going to find out. But we can learn a lot from his MMA career, in my opinion. In the build-up to this, people are referring to Tyron Woodley as a striker in the MMA game. And towards the end of his career, he stood up a lot. But to me, he's a well-rounded fighter. He's just an all-rounder. He started wrestling, got his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, got a few nice highlight reel knockouts. He could do it all, but he was not a striking specialist. We're not talking Israel Adesanya by any stretch of the imagination here. He could bang, good counter right, he's got some power. Tyron tends to let the other guy take the center. He's a bit of a defensive fighter, even sometimes passive, those fights with Wonderboy got criticized heavily. And when the other guy is, marching forward, he can be a little bit too happy to just be on the outside. And, sometimes that works for him because he walked Darren Till onto that big counter right. And also, when he's backing off, he can lull his opponent a little bit into a false sense of security. And then he rushes in, and he does that thing that Masvidal can do where you sort of throw as you're moving, which is quite difficult, work for Masvidal and Darren Till as well. Those rushes are something that Jake Paul's really going to have to watch out for because they are unorthodox. And when you're coming at someone with that kind of momentum, especially if it's just a burst and you use that momentum to go through the fucking chin, you end up flattened like Robbie Lawler did. You know what I mean? You've got to be on your bike a little bit when he starts trying that. This is going to be fascinating because obviously Tyron's usually helped by the threat of the takedown and, he's got his kicks and he sets a lot up through the unknown of what's coming next, whereas he doesn't have that in this. We're going to see, really, for a guy who was so high level that Tyron Woodley was, and I don't want to hear any, he's not maybe the best fighter in the world anymore that he was at welterweight, but the motherfucker went 25 minutes with Kamaru Usman, 25 minutes with Gilbert Burns, almost 25 minutes with Covington if it wasn't for an injury. They're the top 3 welterweights in the world. That all happened in the last couple of years. So the guy's not shit. You understand what I'm trying? If Jake Paul goes in there and hurts him badly, I think a lot of people are going to have to reassess where MMA level boxing is versus real boxing, or pure boxing as they call it. And all of these MMA fighters who keep calling out boxers, it may make them think, ugh. Conor did all right with Mayweather, but Mayweather ain't a hard hitter. This may not go so well for us for a start, people may start to respect Jake Paul. I mean, surely, probably not. Probably not. Do you know what it is? Some people just bury their fucking head in the sand no matter what, won't they? So Jake's got a few obvious advantages here. He's bigger, marginally. He's a lot younger, got a good reach on him. So, that should help him. Some of the X factors, though, I think are power and speed. I think Woodley's got the speed advantage early on, ever so slightly. It's hard to tell because Jake is quick, and until we really see them in there, it's going to be tough. But the one thing I'm really convinced of is Jake has more power. I think that's the thing that really surprised people from the journey of Jake Paul is when you're seeing people going down because of who it is, you're like, is Jake Paul that harder hitter? I think we're going to find out in this fight. I think he's going to prove it. Don't get me wrong. Knocking out Ben Askren doesn't prove a great deal, but when you watch enough pads and enough sparring and enough footage on Jake, you know he can crack. If you know what to look for, you know he can crack. And I'm not saying Woodley can't, but the way he throws those punches, the technique on them, he's not a perfect boxer, but he throws them with less fat in the technique, in my opinion, than Tyron Woodley. And the way he extends and turns his arms over, his punches, just through the proper technique, he is going to make the absolute most out of that reach. Tyron Woodley, I don't even think can do that. I don't think he's of that level. And that's stuff that is specific to boxing. You're not throwing shots the same way in MMA because you've got to get your hands back and you're aware of the takedown. It's not the same. You're not committing the same way you can commit in boxing because you're not worried about the takedown. So I think there's less fat in the technique of Jake Paul. Defensively, I'm not sure because, Jake did take a punch off Ben Askren early on. And if that had been a Tyron Woodley punch, you may have been in fucking trouble. I think his footwork is decent. His head movement is something I think he needs to work on more, and I'm sure that BJ Flores, as trainer, is doing that. Head movement, it's something that takes a while. He's still so young in the game. Good footwork, good punch placement, quick, accurate. The thing that Jake has, and it kind of reminds me of poker, you can either teach this or you can't. You either have it or you don't. It's just pure aggression. When you're willing to risk being knocked out to knock the other guy out, it makes you so much more difficult to deal with and scarier. Because like some people just don't have that in their wheelhouse. And if you know that the other guy isn't willing to really put himself in the fire to get you, you're able to play it safe and to know that, all right, we're kind of going to go with decision here. We'll see who gets the better of it. I actually think that Woodley's gone a little bit like that in a lot of his fights, actually. He's been a bit passive. He's been too comfortable on the outside. And when another fighter has stepped up and put it on him, the way Usman did, the way Covington did, the way Gilbert Burns did, Woodley didn't act like a man who was willing to roll the dice and risk it all in order to come back in that fight, to turn the tide. He just sort of rolled over. And that's a mental problem more than anything. I actually think Jake's slightly in his head here, which is crazy to say because this is Tyron Woodley. But it's a Tyron Woodley who's probably all too aware the great moments of his career are yesterday, and they are in the past. They're becoming memories now, and those memories are getting further and further away. And to be fired by the UFC the way he was, brutal. I felt for him, to be honest, because, you know, Joe Rogan even says this guy's top 3 welterweights of all time for the way he fought and what he achieved. The one thing I will give him credit for is in that final fight against Vicente Luque, he came out and he fucking went for it, and he threw everything but the kitchen sink. The problem is, it wasn't smart, it was desperate. And when you watch a man go from being too cautious, too careful, too happy to let the fight pass him by as long as he's not being punished too bad and not being hurt too bad, and then he goes from that extreme to in the next fight knowing his job's on the line and going crazy and not showing any judgment of danger and just going wild, and then end up getting badly hurt later in that first round and showing that, I mean, he was disco dancing into that cage. I mean, his chin was fucked. He went from too careful, too worried to bloody Vanderlei Silva and Chuck Liddell, like just nuts. Like, you have to fight smart. And that's the thing here is Jake Paul may not have the experience that a Woodley has, but I think upstairs he's a bit more cold and calculated and less emotional. And when they're nose to nose and you've got a 24-year-old kid saying to you, hey, old man, you better fucking put every deal you can get together for this fight because this is your last fucking payday. And when I beat you, your name, your credibility as a fighter, everything you've worked for in the last 12 to 15 years is because you got beat by the YouTube kid. That pressure that he was putting on Woodley when he was saying, bet me your winnings and we'll put it to charity or whatever the hell the deal was. Woodley, you could see he was like, oh. And then eventually Jake finesses him into a silly tattoo bet just to ramp the pressure up on him. There's more pressure on Jake on this fight, but he's not acting that way because pressure is his life. He's used to being in that position of being the hated one or whatever, and he's just ramping it up on Tyron. And I don't feel like he's dealing with it as well as he could. That being said, I have a lot of respect for Tyron Woodley. You know, I've watched his career, and you know, we all know Mama Woodley and all of these beautiful moments we've seen him and his family share in the octagon. I just don't think Tyron Woodley is as confident as Jake Paul right now, and that doesn't mean the outcome of the fight is going to go to the most confident guy. But when skill levels potentially are close to each other, and you've got a kid who's got longer reach, probably hits harder, more confident, younger, at the start of a journey where he's not willing to quit unless he absolutely has to, and especially with everyone wanting him to lose, he's going to be willing to do whatever it takes. I've already seen Tyron Woodley is not willing to do whatever it takes in multiple fights, and that was when he was trying to hold on to a fucking championship. It doesn't bode well for him. Despite all that, the X factor here is we do not know how good Jake Paul's boxing is because he's never been really tested. He's knocked everyone down pretty fucking quickly, and that was the end of it. Is he a good defensive boxer? Has he got a lot of heart? Is he able in the heat of the moment to, you know, get his guard up, circle out and do all the right things? We're going to find out here, because unless he does the same to Tyron Woodley, you would expect Tyron to at least put up a good fight, and potentially a lot of people are going to be expecting Tyron to win this fight, I'm sure. I just don't think Tyron Woodley's going to win this fight. I think stylistically it really suits Jake, actually, because I look at who Tyron beat in his prime and how it happened. Wonderboy Thompson, Darren Till, Robbie Lawler. In those fights, despite Robbie Lawler's style, all three of those guys were allowing Tyron space time and a way of basically controlling the fight and setting up his attack. What you need to do is do what all the others did, which is get close to him and put the pressure on him. And when you don't have to worry about a takedown, I'm pretty fucking sure Jake Paul, with that reach and with the already aggressive style that we've seen him have, he is going to be putting that jab on him constantly early on, I would expect. And it's ironic because I know Darren Till probably has better skills than Jake Paul and all of that, but the point is Jake Paul fights more aggressively than a Darren Till does. Fucking hell. You know what I mean? Like that might not work for him. I might be completely wrong, but I actually, that's how I say this. I say Jake coming out, dominating the distance, controlling Tyron with that jab. I see Tyron getting frustrated. I see Jake hitting the body. I see Jake coming over the top. Big right hand. I see him dropping Tyron Woodley. I think because it's showtime, because of the money that's gone into this, I think they'll let him up. It won't be no Ben Askren quick call off. And then Tyron Woodley gets knocked clean out. First few rounds. That's just how I see this going. Fucking mental. I could be wrong. You know what I mean? I could be fucking wrong. And ultimately, that sets up the mega fight, which I know you all want to see it. Jake Paul versus Deji 2. No, fucking. It's just fucking mad. I don't, like, if Jake Paul, if I'm right and this happened, where does he go from here? We'll find out on the podcast. The Pain Game podcast, Monday on the True Geordie YouTube channel. Do subscribe to that channel if you haven't already. Now, the home of the best fucking fighting podcast on the internet. All right, maybe not, but I'm going to try. I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.